Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here. My name's Jodie Sizer. I'm a Gunditj Marra woman from the southwest of Victoria. I'd like to formally acknowledge the traditional owners upon the land in which we meet here this afternoon, the Wurundjeri and the Boonwurrung peoples of the Kulin Nation. In particular, I'd like to pay my respects to their elders, their knowledge and their wisdom as we tread carefully for our time here on this earth. Thank you.
Thanks, Jodie. Welcome, everyone. This is an historic and proud day for the Collingwood Football Club, a club that includes 2 senior AFL teams, 2 netball teams, 2 AFL women's teams, the Collingwood wheelchair team and the Collingwood Reclink team, members, supporters, sponsors. 8 teams represented by a myriad of life, all drawn for our collective identity of Collingwood. And today we embrace a leadership position on the most fundamental of rights, equality. To be who you are, based on your abilities and character and nothing else. In doing so, we have spent the last 6 years in particular in a deep dive into how we can make ourselves better. First up, and then to provide leadership and conversation in the community as only Collingwood can. Now, this is an area fraught with danger and recriminations, but we have decided as a club that this fight against racism, against discrimination of all types, is where we want to be. To acknowledge our place in the wider community's lack of understanding at times, and to put in place not just good intentions, but even greater time, effort and resources to provide the systems to achieve our goals. We make mistakes, we learn, we strive to be better. But in working to build this club into a position that it is today, to be able to make these announcements, we'll continue to do our best to be a leading light in our community. It is why we commissioned this report, to not pay mere lip service to a worldwide tragedy, but to lay the foundations for our people, our game and our community. And I'd now like to hand over to Jodie to make some opening remarks.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, everyone. Racism and how we respond to it when it occurs is one of the most significant and prevalent issues of our time. There is not a workplace in this country that should not be having this conversation. In fact, in a report published by Vic Health that surveyed over 750 Aboriginal Victorians, they found that 97% of people experienced racism in the last 12 months, and almost half of those in sporting clubs. It's the first time I've met many of you here today, so you might want to know a little bit about what I'm doing here and maybe why I joined the club in the first instance, and it leads a bit to some of Ed's early comments about the journey. It's about 5 years ago when I'd had a first formal role in joining the Collingwood Football Club Reconciliation Action Plan Committee. Joined with a team of community leaders and workplace representatives across the whole club, as complex as sporting clubs are, with a commitment to do better in reconciliation. We already had a Reflect level reconciliation action plan, and we worked hard to stretch beyond not just the next level, which was Innovate, but actually leapfrogged and went to the Stretch level. Through this work and working together with our community, we decided we wanted to do more. And in my many roles, I'm always most motivated where we have opportunities for impact. And I saw the AFL industry and sporting code as an opportunity for an area needing to change. An opportunity where we could make great impact, and the Collingwood Football Club, if genuinely committed, could be the leaders of that change for the whole of the code and the whole of the country. So 3 years ago, I joined in a formal role as a board member of the Collingwood Football Club. And boy, have I been on a steep learning journey. Whilst I've worn many different governance hats, from CEOs to chairs and director roles, I've never come across an organisation, even within my deep experience in Aboriginal affairs, with more complexity than a high-performing sporting club. But what I can say, that from my time on the board and at every touch point, having the good fortune to spend, well, I don't know if it's good fortune, but a couple of months up in the hub with all of our Collingwood family, that there is 100% commitment to doing better and doing the good work that needs to be done. To that end, I can say today that I'm proud of our club for having the courage. I'm proud of our board for accepting all of the recommendations that are outlined in the Do Better report. It takes courage, it takes genuine commitment. In fact, it is a landmark day for us as Collingwood people, for us who believe in this country we need to do better. And for many of those reasons, that's why we went into commissioning this report. We went into this work with our eyes wide open, that even though in my short 3 years I have had a few interviews and everyone starts with a conversation about the past decades, and yeah, there are instances where it's hard being a black fella and barracking for Collingwood. So we went into this report to gain independence with a full view and our eyes wide open that 80% of the work would need to be done in the implementation and the doing. We needed to listen, we needed to learn, and we needed to act. We engaged with the many experiences of a number from within the club and external, and this report is a commitment of our leadership in truth-telling. Leadership that we need more of in this country. When we reflect back to the listen, the learn and the act, and we know the report, its independence provided us the opportunity to listen, we need to continue with the doing, and the doing requires us to learn. And in fact, it often requires us to unlearn. Understanding new terms to have these active conversations. What does systemic racism mean? What does it take to improve our practices and policies as an organisation and respond to incidences when they occur? We are doing this work, and there is some way to go, to bring a world-class, systemised approach to practices that are beyond individual doing in the many great efforts of people, players, staff, members and fans across our club. And we will need to engage with all as we extend the positive change and realise our potential for good, realise our potential for great on a world stage. As the report states, it is time for act. It is now time for Collingwood to meet the moment. We're here to answer your questions.
Thank you, Jodie. We open the press conference to questions.
Have you or any organisation that you've led ever received this sort of criticism before?
This is not criticism, this is a review that we asked to have. No.
That's strong. Very strong.
Well, it's very strong because we asked the organisation to go as hard as they possibly could to give us the base to be able to build the future of this club on. We didn't want to get platitudes, and there's plenty of things we could put on the table today to what we have done and what we do on a daily basis. But we wanted to seize the moment, to look at what's happening in world affairs over the last 12 months in particular, and to put ourselves in front of things. And sometimes, as we know in football clubs and sporting organisations, it's better to sit down and listen to the coach, give it to you right between the eyes so that you can step up to the plate to do what you want to do. If we were found wanting in the past, it wasn't because of intention. It might have been because of application or the systemic issues that we have in a football club, because it is not BHP, it is a footy club. And we have to look at these things, but we're bigger than that. As I said in my introduction, we're a big club now. Men, women, different sports, all sorts of people in our community, and supporters and sponsors. So for us to actually ask, we asked them, as the report says in the quotes, and I'll pull the quotes out in a moment, but it says, well, let me just find it for you. The fact that the Collingwood Football Club commissioned an independent review of its processes in dealing with racism reflects the realisation within the club that something fundamental needs to change, and in the community. It needs to be noted and underlined that in its undertaking of this review, the club was unflinching in holding up a mirror to itself. It was a brave first step that few would have the courage to take, and shows the seriousness with which the club takes this issue. So I am extremely proud. I've been here for a long time, and we've done a lot of great things. And this is great. It didn't say that, Cameron. I mean,
Egregious when it comes to racism in the AFL. Collingwood particularly.
yeah, so just, again, we want to do things that are good here, okay? We don't want to get into semantics. We don't want to get into debates with the report or with reporters. We want to talk about where we're going. Now, the situation is saying that there have been issues throughout history, not only in football clubs, but everywhere. And that's where we wanted to go with it, okay? Now, we can argue semantics, but no, the tone of what we wanted to get to was where do we base this to go forward? And that's where it's at. It's as simple as that. So we look at it and say, right, okay, rather than argue the toss on individual issues, we go, right, okay, there's been some issues along the journey, no doubt about that. Let's now build on what that is. Let's make sure that we don't get to any further stages on that.
In fact, I think it'd be great to work with the AFL further to understand as a baseline that this report can set to look at all of the other 17 clubs across AFL and the AFL as a whole to say what role do we all have in lifting the veil to see where racism does occur and what we are doing about it as a whole. I think
Collingwood, it is about Collingwood. That's why we're asking you questions about
that's right.
Yeah.
And I think the question was, did you ask if it's the most? The report doesn't say it
highlighted. Your record was highlighted in this report.
because we're the only ones that did the review.
It was our report, that's why it's hard. We asked them to look at us. And but Cameron also, part of, okay, well I'm answering now. Part of what we wanted to do was to find out what people who had nothing to do with the club thought of football and thought of us. So some of the people who were involved in the interviews have never been to a football game, don't live in the state, have nothing to do with Collingwood, don't know anything about the place, but what they might have heard or what they felt. So it's not an investigation, okay? This is a report to find out where we are and where we need to position ourselves.
And it's not a comparison.
Sorry,
Yeah.
you've been here since 1998. Systemic racism on your watch at Collingwood. I mean, I think that warrants a response to what has been found within the club.
Again, well, Jodie, if you want to have a go, yeah, go.
No, I want to hear, sorry.
Yeah,
I
well,
want to hear it from you, Eddie.
okay, well,
all day we're hearing that you need to stand down, this has happened on your watch.
Oh, yeah.
This is what this is about, systemic racism. How do you respond to that finding within your club that we all know you love so much?
What's happened on my watch is this. We've built a fantastic club. We have commissioned this report. We have built all sorts of mechanisms to get involved in the community, from looking after the homeless and many other aspects of life that stands absolutely head and shoulders above most organisations, of which we're very proud. We look back now and say, right, okay, in 2021, what is it we need to do? Okay, now, there are plenty of things at the moment you look back on and you go, gee, I wish we could have done those better. That's in every way, shape of life. At the time, we did them as well as we thought you could. So there was not systemic racism as such. We just didn't have the processes in place as we look back now to do the job we'd like to have done in 2021.
If I may just add a comment around systemic racism. No, we're not saying the report's wrong. When you read the report, and I had the pleasure of working closely with the authors through this process, when they refer to systemic racism, what it is a review of our processes, procedures and systems. So they look at incidents of racism that are on the public record. There's no new incidents that have been reported. And what they found was that we tend to respond to each incident individually. And the recommendation coming from the report is to improve our systems, processes and policies for how we respond more collective as an organisation. The report actually says that we have amazing people that are very committed to this. It doesn't call our people racist or that we're a racist organisation. It says our systems fail us sometimes. I don't think that would be unique to Collingwood, but some of the work I've had the pleasure of doing around the world will tell me it's not unique to Australia, it's not unique to football. This is, as Jodie said, 97% of people, Indigenous people in Victoria have suffered racism in the last 12 months. So it was actually a comment around that our systems, policies and processes aren't robust enough to handle these incidents in a way that allows us to move forward. And that's what we're committing to do.
But the report is quite
Yeah, it's a confronting report to read. We agree with that. It actually says that as the years have gone by, we have improved in these areas, but we still have a long way to go. Like, we have put in RAP committees that Jodie spoke about. We've tried to develop, we've set up the integrity committee. That's 14 months ago. We've tried to put down into place whistleblowing processes and procedures. We're trying to strengthen an organisation that, by the way, is a wonderful organisation full of amazing people that falls short. It falls short. And so we're trying to work out systems, processes and procedures that mean that doesn't happen.
And what the report also says, that since that point in time, we have come some way to addressing that. So we just need to get better in the application and be systematised in its whole of organisation approach. So regardless of which individuals are sitting in which seats, that the systems, the policies and the practices stand up.
Eddie, why did you not release this earlier, before Christmas or just after New Year?
Well, we were going to do it later on, to be honest, and in fact we had other meetings planned this week to meet with the authors. It leaked today, so we're here today, but we would have liked to have actually taken a little bit more time, continue to go through the process of what we wanted to do and make some announcements and even put some names to some of the committees that we wanted to do. We wanted to do it in one go. It's not something we could, it was hampered, of course, by COVID. I mean, the authors actually still haven't sat face to face with us. And we're hoping to do that, in fact, today or by next Friday. But we'll do that in due course. We'll continue to do so. But the issue leaked, so we came here today to tell you where we are, and we'll hopefully continue to tell you as we roll out all the implications of the report and also the recommendations. No, it didn't. In fact, the only decision it had on that was to make sure that I was here to make sure that we implement these things over the next 12 months. I'm absolutely dedicated, as I said at the time, and continue to say today, to make sure that we roll out all these recommendations, but also build further on that. That's what I want to do in the next 12 months.
Eddie, Marita Lawler's legal counsel said today that this report vindicates his claims against the club, and I know O'Brien hasn't been at the lawsuit at the moment. How would you respond to that? I mean, his claims are way different to what you're saying going on the side of the club.
Well, look, there's a couple of things there, Laura, and the first one is that Heredia was encouraged and asked to be part of this inquiry or this report. It's his prerogative not to, and he didn't. So there's been no individual deep dive or investigation into any particular situation on that. And it is before the courts, and we have no further comment.
Eddie, the report refers to individuals who consider themselves bigger than the club, which it says is unhealthy. Do you think that's a reference to you? And do you agree with that premise?
No, I don't know who it's referring to. I mean, I've been around for a fair while and I'm a big presence, but there's been plenty of them in this organisation over 120 years.
You haven't thought to consider your position as a result of this?
No, well, hang on, look at the lights. You want to fix your light? Okay. Yes, I do, to drive through these agenda items. This is something I've been very passionate about, not just today, but right through the 22 years that I've been the president of the Collingwood Football Club, and I have no doubt whatsoever, and with the support of the board and the members, to be able to do this job.
Is this a humbling day for you?
No, it's a day of pride. I mean, this is where, I think people have to get past, if we're going to get anywhere, we have to get past the idea of tearing down people, tearing down institutions who are prepared to look within themselves, to make the hard decisions, to make things different, to step outside their comfort zone, to analyse themselves, to do the right thing. Yeah, this is hurtful for a lot of people, but that's beside the point. The whole point is...
Do you regret any of the ways in which, given what's in the report, do you regret personally any of the ways that you handled certain incidents?
In what way?
Well, the way in which the club responded.
No, I think again, Jake, what we're doing here is we've looked within ourselves, we've asked other people to take a new helicopter view. and they came back to us and said, you need to get these processes in place. They're not in place in most places in the world, but if you want to be the best at it, we suggest that these are the things you want to do. So I don't think there's any shame or any disappointment in what's going on here. As I said right from the outset, this is a day of pride. This is a day where I can sit next to Jodie and she can honestly say, as a member of the Collingwood Football Club board, that this club is standing for something significant in this area, and they're actually putting in place the mechanisms to make a difference. So far from it, it's a day of pride.
I think that on the back of that, there's a lot of discussion that we'll read out in the socials about the role of football clubs in motivating and leading change when we are talking about racism, or we are talking about free the flag, or the many issues. And I think that corporate Australia, I think our sporting clubs and codes have a significant role in leading change, and I think that we've done something here that we should all be proud of, to open up the conversation in this room that we wouldn't be having otherwise.
Can I just say, ask Eddie, you've said in this day of pride, I think we'd all agree it's a great thing that you've done to address and get on the front foot and have this report looking into the club, but do you think it would be helpful for those who have been hurt and for the fans to acknowledge just how awful some of the findings are, and wouldn't that be a good way in moving forward?
Well, I don't know, Laura, exactly what you mean by that, because we're implementing all the recommendations to do so.
Well,
So it's a matter of actually doing something. We hear a lot of talk in this space. We're doing something. We called things out 6 years ago, in fact 22 years ago, when we started on this campaign. We led the way on so many of these things, and we continue to. And yes, in a period of time, over that time, yes, there are mishaps along the journey, as there have been in all walks of life and in all organisations.
I guess
What we've done is...
using the language like there's been mishaps could seem to be trivialising.
Oh, well, I'm sorry I haven't brought the thesaurus with me. We understand what the situation is. I don't think anybody is making light or trying to diminish the message we're making today. I would have thought that it was self-evident, the amount of deep reflection and emotion that has gone into all of this report on all sides and coming together. So there shouldn't be anybody trying to have a gotcha moment here. The situation that we are doing here, which we are so proud of, is delivering something that we can build on, that we hope will be a landmark situation for the world and for every kid who comes through.
And this is about listening and learning from those instances of the past, but it's very much a forward-looking document. It's how do we be better? How do we become better? There's a genuine intent about leading this topic on behalf of the industry, but broadly in society as well. With the implementation of the 18 recommendations, we absolutely commit to being better, doing better, and playing a leadership role in that.
And Mark,
Yeah, we'll engage them immediately, and they've been across our dialogue and intent, and they've got great intent around what we ask and what we stand for as an organisation.
What's that?
Well, as Eddie said, there was a plan to implement this in a good, thoughtful way and to take time around our response. The board did get this the day before Christmas close, and so there has been clearly the period of the new year. They committed the first week back, the board met again to discuss, so there's only been a short period of time to discuss. There's an absolute commitment to get this right, to implement the 18 recommendations thoroughly and well, not to rush it, and our players and our staff are all part of that journey and absolutely committed. And what I love about our players is there's a real engagement and a real want to do better and be better and to learn as well. And so we'll absolutely engage with our players as to what that means.
Mark, can I just provide testament to that, just to the commitment that what the content that's in the report, there's nothing new in there. So the work that's been going on to implement the finding of this work is already underway. And a good example of that is the cultural awareness training that we've been implementing in the club, which over 90% of our staff has done, and introducing conversations to understand what cultural safety means, what cultural competence means. We've done that work with all of our leadership team, all of our executive, our playing teams, leadership team, to get comfortable with new conversation about what systemic racism means, What role do I have to play? What language do I need? How do we activate across our team? So the work, whilst they haven't seen the printed document, because we didn't know it was coming out today, the work and the content of the work will be very familiar, and that's why we can hit the ground running to continue the implementing of the recommendations.
And I spoke to a couple of the players today just in the gym, and they're delighted with where this is going. They're really excited by it. Younger players, in particular, players of colour who I spoke to today, men and women, absolutely delighted that this is where it's at. And one of the things I spoke to them about was, I was asked, what does this actually mean? I said, well, what it means now is that instead of having to go through a whole different lineup of football people, if you like, or administrators or managers or everything else that happens in a football club, you can go, there will be a safety net there, a safe zone for you to go to. And that was universally accepted and applauded with delight. So for me, today, again, when I'm walking through and having a chat to the players about this, and that's the response, I go, right, okay, we're moving in the right direction. And we listen to Jodie, and Jodie's lived and seen more of this than any of us. And that's why we set this report up, to hear from people other than ourselves. We can all convince ourselves we're doing things as well as we possibly can. I hope that, as part of what I said in my introduction, Collingwood does provoke conversation. And I hope it provokes conversation tonight in every household. I hope it does in all your workplaces. I hope people look around and go, I'm not sure if we're doing it so well. How do we go forward on this? So if we put ourselves up to be marked, and marked hard, as we do, we're not shying away from anything. We do so because we believe this is a spot that we need to be in, and to show social justice, natural justice, and a leadership position. And we hope that everyone folds in behind us, and when we make mistakes, we'll own to them, but we will make more right calls than mistakes as we go forward, as we have in the past. But we've made mistakes, and we don't resolve from that.
And it's also true that the impetus, it's also true that the only reason this came about is because of Bereni's claim, the fact that he was...
No, that's wrong, Michael. No, again, I'll go back. I'm sorry, mate. No, I'll go back. Okay, I said we've been doing this with a real passion for 20 odd years, but the last 6 years. Right? That's why we went out and Jodie became the first, I think the first or equal first Indigenous board member of any AFL club. And not only because she was Indigenous, but because she was a leading player in this area. Okay, so that's a number of years back. Before that, where I met Jodie in the first place, where I was inspired to ask her if she'd become part of the Collingwood Football Club board, was in the Reconciliation Action Plan, where we sat down in Fitzroy with a great group of people, and we went through all these things. That's where it all started. So it hasn't been one thing or another with this. And as I said, Heredia is a different position. We would love to sit down with Heredia. We've made entreaties through his legal teams. We want to engage with Heredia. He's one of our guys, okay? He doesn't feel that at the moment. It breaks our heart. Right? We want him to be one of us. We want him desperately to be one of us. And we want to show everybody that this is what we're all about. We're not a mean-spirited club. We're not a racist club. We're a club that tries to do well, and we make mistakes. We're a big church. But what we want to do more than anything is to put our arms around and take the heat out of this constant race debate. We've seen it in the last couple of weeks. It doesn't go away. So if it means we have to put ourselves up and cop some whacks along the journey, so be it, because we think it's so important. And that's what this club stands for.
Jodie, as it stands today, Collingwood does not have a single Indigenous player on the male.
Can I just jump on for a second there? Just before you do that, we bid on 4 Indigenous players in the last draft. Sorry, you'll go. Go, Joe. So, you know.
As it stands today,
Yes.
how does that rest with you? And secondly, does the club need affirmative action almost, for want of a better term, to achieve any of the stuff that you put down here? Given that you don't have players, I'm not sure how meaningful some of this is.
Well, as an Aboriginal woman, of course, that's not the position I'd like to have, but I know that how challenging the managing of our list is. It is true that we did bid on 4 players, and so from my position, it's not okay, and we need to do better, and I'm up for striving to what that looks like. that our leadership with Ned Guy, we've had many conversations for me to get my head around how the draft works. I haven't quite got the formula completely nailed, but working together to potentially provide affirmative measures to how we do that work. I think across the industry as a whole, we've seen the massive surge in the talent on the field over the last couple of decades. We haven't quite seen that translate to coaches and other roles. We're starting to see that movement in board positions. We need to look at what we're doing in a club to be able to be the club of choice, and that's what we'll be striving to do.
So just on that for a second, Jake, I think to be fair on that, this is not just an Indigenous report. This is about multicultural. This is about gender. It's about equality in all ways, shapes and forms. You know, our captain of our women's netball team is Jiva Mentor, a British woman with a Jamaican father. We have West Indian players in our netball team. We have Asian players in our women's team. We have the son of a Ghanaian man playing in the Collingwood team. Daniel Wells is heading up our whole Indigenous program, and the Rec Link team that we have, that we fund and look after, is largely Indigenous players. We do all these things. In our netball team, we have Asian people coming through the organisation. We have everybody, and that's what we're doing. And when we put together this committee, it will underline that. It'll be for everybody. We want this to not just be an Indigenous white fella conversation. We want this to be a community conversation, and we want to make that giant leap forward. That's why all this hard work. And yeah, there's been pain. Of course there's pain on all sides. No one likes to be cast in a light that's bad, and particularly in something that's totally anathema to everything the club has stood for since 1892 and the people associated with it. So we're there to do the right things, but we will cop the wax as we go, providing people fold in behind us. But today, when I spoke to Jiva Mentor, when I spoke to Isaac Quaynor, and spoke to different people around the clubs. I spoke to Irish boys, when I spoke to Mason Cox, an American man who's playing for our club, when we speak to all these different nationalities, it was great to hear the feedback that this is something they want at their club, and they want to be proud of their club. And we want to make everyone associated with our club proud, and the greater community. So that's what it's about. It's bigger. It's not football. This is Collingwood as a club.
Okay, but the report found that Collingwood as a club, racism within Collingwood had a profound and enduring harm to African and Indigenous players. What steps have you reached out to past players, or will you apologise to them?
Yeah, we speak to people. Look, again, this was not an investigation, and I want to make the point, but that's not to abdicate any responsibility. Again, we're not trying to duck or dive on any of this. We reach out to the report. There are things that we look at it and go, wow, that's hard. But you know what? When we asked for this, we specifically said, as I'm trying to find the quote from Larissa, who said that we went out of our way to hold the mirror up to ourselves, to go hard and hard and hard. And we said to the authors of this report, we want you to come back as hard as you possibly can to do these things so we can look forward to it. So I'll reiterate, we want everybody who has been through here, and we've had, in this report, as part of the report, people come to us and say, we had the most magnificent time, Indigenous players and people of different nationalities. So there's always different points of view on this situation. So again, to answer your question, yeah, we don't want anybody to feel bad about this place. We don't want anybody feeling as if this isn't somewhere that's safe. We want people to love the experience, to come to the football, so that we have people who are supporters, who barrack hard for Collingwood, but do so in the right manner. We've called that out. I've personally called that out at the football when it's happened. So, as I said, we do as much as we possibly can, and we're going to push ourselves even harder.
And I think...
How do you feel about the line, racism appears to be a part of Collingwood Football Club's DNA?
Yeah, again, Cameron, what we did in this is we asked the authors to go and ask people what they thought. And these were people, as I said, some of the people lived in New South Wales. So we take that on board. We wanted to find out that some people out there think that that is a situation. They also think that it's endemic in AFL football, but it has been directed to us. It's in the report. So we look at that and go, right, okay, so how do we make sure that changes? What is it that we don't notice? You know, it's like anything. You work in an organisation day in, day out, you think you're doing everything right, the AFL thinks it's doing everything right, all 18 clubs are killing themselves to try and do everything right. And then you find out maybe you didn't hear, maybe you didn't get it in the first place. That's what the whole Black Lives Matter lesson has been, certainly for me over the last 12 months, is as involved as you'd like to be, as part of the answer that you try to be. Sometimes you just don't get it until you actually get it. And that's what we wanted to find out. And, you know, we got it hard and fair, and we've looked at it and we've adapted and we've adopted the recommendations.
And the other thing that the report does do is say that there are good people with good intent, but we have lacked the systemic processes where if something goes wrong, that it creates a safe environment that they can voice it. And so our commitment and our need is to actually set up those systems and processes where if things go wrong, if we don't get something right, that it can be a safe place and a process that someone can go and frame that immediately, that will get an immediate response regardless of the individual or person that they go to.
Do you accept that perception?
What is clear in the report is that we haven't had those systems and processes in place, and we absolutely need to have them.
But the report goes further. It says that the club has an extensive reaction to people who have raised claims of racism, and that the club goes out of its way to attack those people and silence them.
And so I can speak on only in the time that I've been here, but from our people and my experience of our people, absolutely that is not their case. We do have really good people here. However, if we have got things wrong or we do get things wrong, what is needed is a clear process for people to escalate that. And I think that already exists in terms of good people in leadership roles. What the report rightly addresses, if those good people leave and another person comes in, that's not guaranteed that it's systemic, and it's systemic across our organisation. And what we need to do is make sure we put in the processes and practice, regardless of the individual in the role, that we do address it and we do pick up the issues immediately.
But then do you reject that part of the report where it says that?
No, I'll tell you what we're doing. We're not rejecting any part of the report. You know why? Because we don't want to get into a you said, we said. As I said, it's not an investigation. It's not a royal commission. It's what people have said they believe to be the situation, or it might be just their feel, okay? And we have said, right, okay, we're not going to go after people or smack them down or prosecute the case back. We wanted to find out what the feel was out there, right? We've got it, and now we're deciding that we're going to absolutely take on board the recommendations and make this place a better place. It's all about today and tomorrow from here. We need to do this, and if we can change the perception of people in the community along with us, even in our own little football sports community, netball, etc., then that'll be a huge result for us. And that's what we have to do.
I can only speak to in my time at the club that what I've seen is in where there have been instances of racism that occur from the crowds or from the media, that there have been responses, there have been pathways, and there has been action, and we've had thanks from those that are players that have experienced this, that we are taking action on their behalf even further to the Human Rights Commission to see what we can do. We all need to charge forward in what we can do to strengthen our organisation, but what we do in changing what's acceptable across the board, for every fan that attends to every game, for every player, for every member of staff is what we can try and protect within our organisation. But having that, I can speak to my time here over the last 3 years, that we have had those responses where there have been incidences occur.
And when Lumumba spoke out against your comments about Adam Hughes back in 2013, he was accused of throwing you under the bus. Have you reflected on that now?
Well, all I know from that situation was I actually picked up Heritier. He came to my house. He had dinner with me. I drove him to Fox Footy. We did the show. I drove him home. And we hugged each other at the end of it. And we said we'd work together going forward.
But I mean, he's essentially alleged that the club...
well, again, that's... Sorry to talk over you, but these are things that have been... that are now before the courts, and they will be prosecuted in court, unfortunately. Hopefully not. Hopefully we can find a resolution, but today's not the day for that. It's not part of this report.
So Mark, just to clarify, Mark.
Yes, Jack.
The response to Heredia Lamunda's claim, the legal position of that is one of the constraints why the report did not encompass his situation. So the fact that it's before a court was a major reason why you did not address it, not simply because he didn't participate.
No, the order actually is we commenced the review, and all individuals that have been part of our history were invited, and Heredia was invited to be part of the review process. This review already commenced well before the court process, and Heredia was invited and welcomed, and we wanted him to be part of the review. The authors of the report decided that he wouldn't be included in the review process because he decided not to participate, which is his right, absolutely. But this commenced well before the court process.
So we notice there's no sponsor logos here today, as you said, most impressive. Have you had backlash from sponsors over time?
No, quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. You know, the whole world's looking into this. You either decide you're on the good side of this or you're not. You know, we're on the good side of this. And so too are our sponsors. So yeah, we're in constant conversation with them.
So no backlash at all with them?
No, I don't think so. I haven't heard
No,
it.
no.
But,
And in fact,
again, can I just say, Cameron, again, this just because it dropped today in the Herald Sun doesn't mean it was something we haven't been working on. We've been working closely. I participated in the interviews as well. We've all been in. We commissioned it. Okay, we commissioned it. We asked for it. We paid for it. We got the report back. We got what we wanted. We didn't want to know. We didn't want to have a beauty competition. We wanted to find out where we needed to do things better.
That's
So
why
we didn't ask the cheer squad what we should do.
Yeah.
We went and got the hardest, most credentialed people to drill down as hard as they possibly could and tell us where we need
and in answering the question, our sponsors are absolutely supportive of us going through this process.
As
And
you've experienced with TAC in the past, things can change pretty quickly.
Well, we live in the world. We're doing what we're doing. We can only try our best. It's as simple as that. I'm sorry?
Will the club be paying compensation for people affected as the report recommends?
Well, this is a report about our systems and processes. It's not about individual claims, as we mentioned before. So it's about how do we get better in addressing these issues from a system perspective and systemic perspective. So it's not about individual cases.
So that's no?
No, that was an answer to that question.
So no money, there's
So
no
you won't?
plan to...
Well, this is about, as I said, this is about the organisation responding in terms of what we need to put in place from a systems and process to make sure we're better moving forward.
Right, but it's recommending that you pay compensation, so will you not be paying compensation
In relation to what?
in relation to the report recommending that people be paid compensation for their experiences at the club?
And specifically?
No, I mean generally. You said you're not commenting on individual cases.
Correct.
I'm saying, will you going forward, if someone, a former player came to the club and said, I had a really awful time, I was called a monkey or whatever, will you pay that person compensation?
Things are before the courts at the moment, and there are elements of this that are sub judice that we can't go into, so they won't be answering that question.
Jodie, you said before, in terms of the AFL,
Yes.
I just want to know what level of engagement have you had with the AFL since this report was handed to the Collingwood board, and where do you think the AFL can more broadly take this? What were you referring to with there's a broader process?
That's an exciting conversation and question to say, what can we do to leave a change across the industry as a whole?
Yeah, has the AFL seen it, this report?
I understand that they've got the report and they've got some great leadership there with Tanya Hosh, who's been working with the executive and commission in the issue of tackling racism for I think all of her tenure, which I think stretches back 4 or 5 years. What we'd love to see is further conversations is understanding racism the prevalence of racism? What does cultural competence look like for an organisation in the sporting industry? How do we ensure cultural safety? What do those terms even mean? How do we get, when I talk to Bucks about understanding how we get high-performing teams and talk to Maxi about the leadership role and bringing the best out in people, our role is ensuring that they've got the full suite of tools in bringing the best out in every individual and ensuring our organisation is fully inclusive, and the best out in everyone is ensuring that they can be their whole self. And I think understanding cultural safety, which is for some in Australia a new term, and understanding what that means and the language, the conversations, the tools and the equipment. There's experts that, like we do that work every day in our day job of helping organisations. There are dozens and hundreds and probably thousands on this journey that are trying to do this work, and the AFL are certainly one that should be moving further forward.
And we absolutely believe that this report does enable us to be a leader in this space within the AFL community, and we'd welcome that opportunity as well, and working with the AFL and in fact other clubs in terms of what has come out of the report.
But the most important thing is that we get ourselves sorted and right.
Eddie, what would you say to the huge Collingwood fan base watching this tonight, reading it tomorrow? There's been a lot of talk about fans who've called in to radio stations today who deny there's any problem. They're very angry that this has come out. They, in a way, feel attacked. But there have been things that have come out that are regrettable. What would you say to those fans going forward in terms of being a Collingwood fan and the way the club is dealing with this?
Well, I think what we've said for a long time here is this, is that our Guernsey, the black and white stripes coming together, is a powerful symbol. And what we need to do is make sure that people forget any slights, to forget any dramas like that they feel impinges on themselves. To look beyond themselves, to try and look after our fellow human beings, and to think of this beyond a football team or a sporting code or anything else. This is a play for humanity, and we want to play a big role in it. So I just say to any fair-minded person out there, if you think that what we're saying today is wrong in any sense of the way, have a think about what it means. What we're trying to do today is put in place a leadership role in our community and also hopefully extrapolate that out beyond our four walls at Collingwood to say that we want to put in place the mechanisms to support people going about their life so that the only thing that they're judged on is their ability and character. And that's basically what it's all about. You can slice it and dice it as many ways as you like, but if you don't stand for that, then there are issues. But that's what we stand for.
Would there be an apology from the club? The report recommends that there should be. Are you willing to give an apology?
Well, I think we do talk about apologies in the media release that we've got here, and we say for that we're sorry. We acknowledge, my quote, the CFC Do Better report is an acknowledgement that our club, our game and our country have got things wrong. For our part, we have always sought to do our best, but looking back, we now know that wasn't always good enough, and for that we're sorry and we pledge to do better. This is not about trying to trip people over. We all get... No, you're not doing that. I'm just saying, when we look at these things, of course you look at things and you go, oh, gee, what does this look like? And what is it? Let's all forget about that. Let's just actually get down to what we're trying to do. And that is provide really good example, a great workplace, a wonderful institution, which is AFL football, and a club that came from the slums in 1892 and wants to stand for what it was standing for the very first day it came into existence. And that is to look after everybody, and particularly the downtrodden or those who feel isolated. That all they have to do is come to the football or come to the netball and say, go Pies, and they're part of something big, and something big that loves them and supports them, cares for them and protects them. And that is what we're trying to do.
Can we add a 2021 premiership to that list too, Ed?
You can certainly do that.
Can I just add to that something to hazard caution, I think, in this workspace that we don't talk enough about, is that today, while we speak of words like pride and a landmark day, we're proud because we're doing the work even though it's hard, but those hard yards do come at a cost, because for many that are in the organisation who are exceptional leaders and excellent people and just beautiful human beings, that they will feel challenged by this and being able to process what does it mean for me as an individual, and that will extend to our fan base and our member base who have got, like I have, having been, I was going to say dragged, but willfully taken to Victoria Park for too many weekends of my childhood. But the attachment that we have, the passion we have for our club, the love that we have for our club, to think that we have had a role in something that brings harm to people, to think that we've done something that we might want to look back and say, well, we could have done better. We could have done better there. So how do we improve on that? And this is trying to bring the evidence base to inform the action to do that forward. But the truth-telling part of that can hurt. It can be difficult. And the country, I'll keep referring to that, is now itself having a conversation. Australia is one of the only countries on the globe that hasn't instigated a truth-telling commission. Victorian government have just done that last year. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in this space, and getting the right support in place, understanding those conversations and how we can move through that together is really critical.
Thanks, Jodie. Thanks, everyone. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.